Recording in progress.
Trustees, Crystal City Independent School District will meet in special session at 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, August 27, 2025 in the Administration Building Boardroom. It's 13B West Zavala Street, Crystal City, Texas, 78839. On a roll call.
Mr. Reyes-Espinosa.
Here.
Mr. Stanley Houston. Absent. Mr. Cruz Mata. Absent. Mr. Victor Bonilla III.
Present.
Mr. Gabriel Espinosa.
Here.
Mr. Vince Martinez.
Here.
Mrs. Peggy Young.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Okay, moment of reflection. Okay, item number 4, public hearing on tax rate and budget. Anzoriones.
So at this point, Mr. Velasquez will present our proposed tax rate for the 25-26 school year. Mr. Velasquez?
You've got one of these on your.
Yes, on page 3 of your packet.
I'll have this up to the school districts generate revenue from a few sources. One is a tax levy on property within the school district boundaries. This notice that was put out is set up with two different rates: the maintenance and operation rate and the interest and sinking rate. In comparison to last year, the tax rate has.
However, can you explain for the people, well, I don't know, we have public maintenance operation.
Maintenance and operation is for the operation of the district, maintaining the district and operating. The general fund, okay. School receives, like I said, funds from various sources. The general fund, taxes, the tax, regular levy on the properties within the boundaries. Again, for maintenance and operation. And the other is for interest and sinking. The interest and sinking is from school districts, vote a bond, go out for bond election, and voters approve that volume of money for that bond. There's a rate of tax collection that is allowed to be collected to meet the payment of those bonds. Most of the time, they're 20-30-year notes on the average. So as the values change, that tax rate should adjust because the property values bring in according to that tax rate. Last year, for the maintenance and operation, which is the basic, the full picture of the general fund in the school district, was at 0.6169. The school board has the authority to go up 5 cents, which allows it for a little bit more funding. Which they did several years ago, they elected to do so. So the tax rate last year was 0.669, okay, on the maintenance and operation. For the debt service, last year, their tax rate was 0.2866. So this year's annual tax rate for maintenance and operations is the same rate, it's a compressed rate that the state deemed on the school district, not all school districts, not just Crystal City. It is again 0.669 for the maintenance and operation. For the debt service, it's dropping about 3.8 cents, rounding it up to 4 cents, but it's under 4 cents because the payments to those debts were refinanced last year or the year before, a few years ago. So the tax collections for that payment have adjusted. So again, the tax rate for the INS service has dropped. The combination of those together has dropped about 4 cents, right under 4 pennies. Do you have any questions in respect to that? Okay. That's the issue on or the explanation of the maintenance and operation and tax rate. The district will then vote on those rates via resolution, and that's simply to function the maintenance and operation of the school district and to pay its debt. Okay? The next item is, that I'll provide you, or data that I'll provide you, is something that the board will look at tonight. It's a summary of the budget. And this document is a formal document. School districts adopt budgets on a function basis. Okay. We shared this with the board in a bit of a workshop on Monday.
Definitely not.
Yeah, you'll have one, okay. So all this does is explain a little bit on where the revenues come from. The top section there, you'll see 100 to dash 99, 199. That's the general fund, general operating funds. That's all state funds along with local funds contributed. That also includes gate receipts, sale of anything that the district has a surplus of, gate receipts, rental of property, the district may rent property, that's revenue, that's local revenue, and it's an intermediate source as well. Those are the dollars. In this case, in this particular year, projected to be 10,939,293. That's the 5,700. The 5,800 are state funds. Another source of revenue is, of course, our state. The function of a school district is instruction support. Provide instruction and support for these kids. The state, based on the PEDS data that's collected in our school district and submitted to TEA, will identify the number of kids we got in different populations, in special ed, in state comp, or in technology, many areas, including our basic allotment, basic instruction. They in turn look at our values that our appraisal district certifies and identifies how much tax collection we're going to generate, how much of a levy we're going to have, and they identify their share of the contribution towards instruction. Looking at this, you'll see their contribution for all those programs is approximately $10,703,308. A lot of that is tied to the average daily attendance. As that fluctuates throughout the year in the district, the business side of the school district monitors that and tries through the superintendent's office and the program directors to modify and adjust expenditures as they anticipate revenues are coming in. That is revenues versus expenditures. And that should always be at a balance. Now, fund balance. A fund balance is when a school district has reserves and has an anticipation that the coming year they want to complete some project, bring in a new project, buy equipment, do repairs. Sources such as the fund balance can be addressed or generated if the budget is not bringing enough revenue. They can balance the budget with sources from their savings, such as you would from home. My paycheck brings in so much, I've got a little bit on savings, I want to buy a refrigerator, I can't pay off my check. Go to your savings, that's what this is. The 7,900s is our sources. And that happens between programs such as, in this case, we have what's called a time warner. We just went back in 2016, achieving a time warner for construction of an elementary school in addition to an elementary school. It was approximately $1 million. Well, the rules at that time identified that the district did not tax the community or the levy, apply a levy on the district properties. So the district was allowed a sale of notes, which were in $1 million, but payment could not be from debt service. We couldn't tax it. Had to be paid from within the budget. As we saved funds, we allocated monies for that payment. So the general fund brings in that money, saves it, sets it aside. The time of payment is on August 15th and in February 15th. 2 payments. That's what this is. It's transferred over to the debt service, and it's still a debt on the district. That's why it's under that column, the 500 column. It says debt service. The district budgets it, and then the time comes, they transfer it over to the debt service. That program in turn makes that payment. Okay? But it's not tied to additional property taxes. All in all, these funds brought together, oh, mind you, one other thing, our food service program. Food service programs are coded a little different. The funding from the food service program, in our case, comes in from the Department of Agriculture, USDA, and it also generates money locally from sales, from adults eating. So that fund is normally put under the 240 fund for free, reduced, and those that pay full. The district, several years back, elected to apply for what's called at the time Provision 2, which meant the school district would flip the tab or pay the portion those free kids had to cover, and those kids that were full had to cover. The free ones, no problem. So the district took on that obligation, and the resource guide, which is the accounting book for TA for school district, codes it under Fund 101. Okay. So we coded under Fund 101. Most of the resources come in for that program from the Department of Agriculture, which is a federal. That's why those monies are listed there under 5,900. Okay. Now, the grants that the district applies for and secures allow for what's called indirect costs. It's a bit of a service fee on the grant for processing things, for services that are generated or provided to the school district. That's another small amount. It's about 100,000 that each of the grants contributes to, not 100,000 per, but as a whole. Okay, federal grants. So that goes in that 5,900 as well. If you scan down, you'll see the column that says expenditures. This is what I was referring to when it said a functional budget. By function, the codes over to the left under expenditures are listed there as instructional resources, which is usually my library. Let me back up a little bit. These are basically just state and local funds, with the exception of the Texas Department of Agriculture for food service. The grants are not listed on here. That is different, and that's different because the program or the school district fills out an application, completes an application, submits it before the end of the last year, last fiscal year. That is determined by the application that district puts together with the program director, the superintendent, and staff, such as principals, that identify what their needs are, and those are usually supplemental to the programs. So those are not listed here, and that's not something that the board approves. Those are federal grants, these are state and local sources, okay? So what you see there is every one of those functions, curriculum, the amounts are right there, and you go down the line, you'll see community services, you'll see the debt service. The debt service, if you walk it across, you'll see the amount of 5.171,300. That's the debt combination of a loan that the district secured last school year, and the bond payments, and the payment for the time warrant. That's all in combination. Okay? That's what's budgeted, in other words, allocated to meet those obligations. That across is, like I said, debt service, which is function 71. In 81, you've got acquisition of facilities acquisition, construction. That's also a payment for our synthetic turf. That was done last year. We have a payment going this September, it's coming September, so it's marked on there. Fiscal agent is our special ed program. They have services that they contract with other districts. So they have to pay a portion of the share of the cost to operate that district. They provide the school district, our school district, services as well. Then other interlocal government charges. That's our friendly and very well-liked appraisal district. The school district, along with the city, the county, college, any taxing entity in the county, contribute because they share in their appraisal. Some districts, such as Crystal City, ISD, also shares in their services of collections. Really, the city and the prior ISD do not, they do their own. Crystal City has been doing that, using them as well. So we contribute a share of our costs in the budget. All these entities contribute. For sure, they have to contribute for the appraisal, because there can only be one appraisal within the county, one agency to appraise. Each of the taxing entities are not allowed. They have a central appraisal. They provide those values, and they in turn report to schools and report to the controller, the state controller, who in turn turns around and sends those values, and estimated levies, to TA, the funding agency for our school district. So we're all connected, and there are all these checks and balances. Like I said earlier, you look at the revenues right at the top, all estimated values, our revenues for this coming year are $26,537,293. The projected expenses are $26,505,442. We have an excess that is not budgeted of $31,851. During the workshop that we had on Monday, that Summary of Finance, which identifies the number of kids we have and the services and the projected revenue for the school district, was much less. They have not updated some of the data that the legislature has recently produced. So we've changed that, we modified that, because in the presentation that we used on Monday, we would have a shortfall. It was a projected shortfall of about $400,000. In the summary of finance that we used just yesterday and today, and we want to keep our eye on it because it's constantly changing, there's constant change. That one reflected the additional funds for the teachers, the legislators that came in, and they're not done yet. Past September 1st, they'll continue to make some updates, and we'll be hopefully the beneficiaries of additional resources. But at this time, the district has to adopt the budget before August 31st. The tax rate is not to be approved at this time. The latest date for the tax rate is September 30th. For the most part, this school district has always done it at the same time. Most school districts do, not all, but in this case, that's the plan. You'll notice that just the graph, this is a visual that I provided, but currently this document is serving the funds out. In the back, it's showing a comparison on one year to the next. And we give further detail. We provide additional information besides the obligated functional budget. We'll identify the first part is the unit that's in question right now that attempted to be or is being proposed. The dollars are the same except the distribution is identified. Under instruction, the $9,291,885 is for payroll. All the way across, you'll see that same number as the total on the front page. But it breaks it down by payroll, contracted services, materials, by other expenses such as travel. And you'll see it all the way down the line to the final total. Again, that number is $26,505,442. That's again the total cost. Below that, in the middle section, is last year's. That's the data in our system, the school system, that identifies how it was distributed last year. The original to original, apples to apples. Last year, these are the numbers, how they were distributed. This year, the projected or the proposed budget is a total of $26,505,000. Last year, at this time, it was $26,590,000. Okay, and the breakdown is right there. You'll see that. Right below that, you'll see the same data, but the totals in comparison 1 year to the next year, 24-25 and 25-26, which is proposed, and you'll see the differences. In instruction, 1 year to the next, the difference is that $1,959,000 additional dollars will be spent or projected to be budgeted. That is about 37% of the budget. In instructional facilities, there's a change, a drop. They're funding it from somewhere else, which means there's no dollars there, but doesn't mean the service is available. Now, there's a savings there or less funding the same amount of 125. Overall, at the bottom, you'll notice the final total for the 24-25 was $26,590,555. For the proposed budget this year, it is $26,505,442, less by $85,113. Overall, you'll see the breakdown of the percentages assigned in dollars for each of those functions, right over on the right-hand side. Do you have any questions?
I have a question, Robert. On the budget here, I mean, what are we using for the, what is the percent that we're using for the collection of taxes?
Taxes, it's about, we did very well this last year. The appraisal district did very well. I think they collected at about 98%.
Crystal City ISD 97, which was very close to $6 million.
They did very well. So we, as a matter of fact, the trend last year was just as well the year before. So we're using that trend. That's how we anticipate expenses and revenues. And expenses sometimes surprise us, but revenues, they've been very good. So we anticipate that the values dropped from last year to the preliminary values to the certified values. They dropped quite a bit.
Was that by the state or?
Oh, it's by the appraisal district. They have challenges. People challenge their values or they reevaluate properties. And that's something that's out of the entity's hands. Sometimes they interject, but for the most part, there's a board and they have an ARD that looks at the challenges, that people challenge their value, claim that it's too high a value. And that's all they do. They do values.
But throughout the year, I mean, some of those challenges that they have when they have the ARB or what's the committee, they could, the appraisal district can win a lawsuit. I think last year, a company gave in and I think every entity got some money. I think we got about 90.
And I'm glad you make that point because as I mentioned, we have a preliminary value and a certified value. I think it was July 25th, they submitted that. And that's for a time that school district and Russian start putting numbers together. But change, as I mentioned earlier, keep happening, such as what Mr. Espinosa just mentioned. People challenge them, and there's court hearings and so forth. And by the time the deadline, their deadline to submit to the controller is usually December 31st. They submit another report. And those values will change for the school district, for all entities. We hammer hat, we need that money significantly. So we're also monitoring that, and we hope that the appraisal district is as accurate as possible because the district sets their budget on those perceptions and not assumption. That's certified value. But that's not to say it's solid. By December, changes will occur. By then, TEA says, ooh, you're getting more revenue. They adjust the share of the district's contribution, which is usually higher because we're bringing in more money. Several years back, I think it was pre-2009, school districts such as Crystal City in their economic position, our values were lower. Funding from the state was approximately 15%. That means the state funded 85% of the cost. Via taxes, because our values were not as high, the district contributed about 15% towards instruction, towards that budget. Currently, it's about 64% the state, maybe higher, a little higher, and the district pays the state pays the other amount. The district's paying about 65% right now, 64 to 65%. And that'll change as the appraisal district changes or updates their values. Values again, and ADA and FTs, or the program identification for the children that are in our schools, for different services. But thank you, sir, appreciate that. Any other questions?
Does the proposed tax rate for the maintenance and operation, does it already include the 5 cents?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. It has been for the last few years, and until the board takes action to change that, to reduce that, which is not something anybody would advise because when you give up that revenue plus additional support from the state says if you do an extra effort, they give you a little more money as well.
I have a question. So, I mean, Monday, this is I'm looking at this and Monday's impact on fund balance is way different than, so I mean, what happened from Monday to today? I mean, I don't, can you, elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, certainly. Let me show you why. On Monday, I showed you a summary of finance that we pulled off the TA website. It was dated August 7th. And we pulled this one up. And this one, we had, the one that I showed you from TA on Monday, the enrollment of ADA was, they had projected on the system, their system was 1425. This one is set at 1367, 1368. Those are the numbers that our school district's kind of generating right now. We do a percentage, we're more conservative than that. So this is what we use to produce the budget. If you notice, TA, this is, Ms. Briones has mentioned it a lot of different times that the legislature is gonna submit additional funding or provide additional funding to the district. If you notice this highlight down here, I didn't put that highlight. It wasn't there before in the summary of finance, and they will continue to update the source. They identified that as, look at it. That's why they highlighted. They gave us more money or identified the additional funds down in the yellow. So your question is legit. That's where we got the money from. We got additional funds from TEA. And our enrollment is more to what is accurate, closer to our state. As a matter of fact, at 10 o'clock this morning, because we're checking it pretty often, was it 14?
20.
Was it 1419?
20 at the end of the day. 1420 at the end.
Right, 1420. Well, I mean, that's important to the district and to the staff, as you can hear them bouncing it off, because they're checking as well. So we set it at 1368. That's conservative. Conservative and scary and high to some degree, because we want to keep it that way. We want to keep it at least that. So the funding that's identified in this table that was in for tonight on this agenda is based on that enrollment, on that ATA. Okay? So yes, good point. We did get more money.
On the yellow things, I don't see anything for, and I know it's in one of the bills, on the Senate, we're getting monies, a lot of monies for special ed.
And we're hoping for it, yes. And those are the changes that I'm sure are coming across. Yes, ma'am.
So let me just, to answer Mr. Espinosa. So the summary of finance, which is where this document is coming from, is fixing to get another revision on the 31st of August. So there are still some allotments that are that were approved by legislation and signed into law by Governor Abbott that are not in here. So
I've been following it.
yeah, we'll see a revision of this document and these figures on August 31st. And then the expectation is that the state will publish the final revision by September the 4th, if not by the 6th, so that all of the new monies that have been approved by legislation to become effective 25-26 school year will be added to this document.
Which will be the final thing coming.
It should be the final September 4th around that time. Now, the budget is what the budget is right now. It's reflective of these numbers. So if there should be a change by September the 4th to our funding, which it's the expectation, and it only will add to our surplus, the surplus that we're presenting to you tonight, then we'll have to come to you for an amendment to the budget, because we're going to have increased revenue coming into the district, which is a good problem to have.
Having said that, besides monitoring the state, we monitor, like I said, the ADA, the program FTEs. In the fall, there's another submission again that we have to keep our eyes on, and we do it even before that submission. We watch this, the kids coming in, the enrollment, the average daily attendance. The staff is on it all the time. Yes,
Robert, do you guys have any questions? We have 1 minute to start the other meeting, and we have to stay in schedule. the 20.
That's all I've got, and thank you for the questions.
Just have one question.
Yes, sir.
So the gap between what we submitted for our enrollment to the state, the 14 something, and what the state said was on Monday has narrowed? It's closer now?
The number that was sent to the state was back September of 2004, and that was a
Not
projection.
2004.
I'm sorry, yeah, 20,000.
2020.
It was just,
That's the number that TA got and put in their template. That's the estimate they received from this school district in 2004, and it's on the TA website as well. And that's why they produced that template. As they update and provide these, we can manipulate that data by adding or adjusting our numbers truer to the school district's population.
okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
And the meeting on Monday, you made a good point. You said, in limited money, we gotta be careful with it, and that's exactly right. If the state's gonna pay us at the 14.25, we should be realistic. This is pretty much all we're gonna earn, based on this number at this time and this formula. So we should be conservative with our budgeting, because they're probably gonna overpay the district, and it's not always a bad thing. You just make sure you don't blow it. Blow the money. You save it, and if they take it from the following year, that's okay. It's an advance payment. That's how it works.
Okay, at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and it's past we can discuss it during our budget and all that. I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Number 5, public comments.
Robert was asking, and
He did.
I don't think anybody, so do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Houston, second. Second by Mr. Mata. Questions, concerns? All in favor to adjourn the public? Okay. Okay,
The time?
6:02.